Michael, last week the FSC released our research report on the future of financial advice in Australia. Our research and analysis, which can be found on the Rice Warner Research website, show that the goals of improving financial advice in Australia and making it more accessible to consumers has largely failed. We expect that this is partly due to the increased legislative burden that industry faces, which in turn pushes the cost of advice upwards. What would you say to those comments?
That's right, Richard. The situation today is dire and it's even worsening. If you think about it, the number of financial advisors leaving the industry is increasing, and that's leaving a shortage of experienced practitioners. At the same time, the cost of advice is much higher than the price that most Australians can afford or that they're willing to pay. Further, the current legislation does not differentiate between simple advice, which is low risk to consumers or even risk-free, versus complex advice where consumers are exposed to much greater financial risks.
Our report recommends the need to reset and change the regulatory environment to reflect the risk borne by consumers and the likelihood that it will cause them harm when they take advice. In your words, Michael, what does this mean?
Well, the delivery of advice is not structured around the risk borne by consumers. So the reality is that even very simple advice involves the same complex and lengthy processes as higher risk advice. And this drives up the cost to consumers, of course, to unsupportable levels. So we're proposing a change in legal definitions revolving around advice to more accurately reflect consumer perceptions and their risks. For example, separating personal advice into categories of simple and complex would be based on the degree of risk and potential harm borne by the consumer. Most single-issue advice, including all the intra-fund advice provided by super funds, would fit into the simple category. We think that by realigning the definitions of advice, regulations can be greatly simplified and the processes as well. And this will result in much lower cost advice to consumers.